Great to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me, Nick.
I can see you are parked up very safely there. I'm most impressed. Look, let's just rattle through some of the key stories today, if we can. These threats to embarrass Keir Starmer moments after inauguration. I mean, this sounds like a bit of hype to me, but there is residual tension with some of his advisers about how Labour behaved during the election campaign. They didn't like sending over 100 helpers and all that stuff, isn't there?
Yes, there is residual tension. I think you're quite right to raise that. I think the other interesting point that we've spoken about, you just mentioned there, of course, is whether Donald Trump steps in and blocks Lord Mandelson as Keir Starmer's pick to be UK ambassador to Washington. And I think if he decides to block that, that would be seen as and it would be very rare for a president to step in like that and do it. So I think that would be a significant move if that was to happen. So in terms of the threats, I think that's, as you rightly point out, Nick, I think that's the big one.
We were reminded by Johnny Gould, and I've no reason to doubt him, but he was talking about in Trump's first term, he had problems with Kim Darroch and effectively removed him as ambassador. Can you recall that? I'm just sprung that on you, but that.
Yeah, I think there was clearly Lord Darroch was. I think it was seen when he was in post and during the first term. There was clearly it was not a straightforward relationship, and I think that was problematic. Karen Pierce, incidentally, who was the ambassador, was the outgoing ambassador, I should say, had worked very hard to build strong relations with the Trump team. Phone calls where Keir Starmer got to speak to Donald Trump are widely thought to be a credit to her relationship with the Trump team. Bringing in somebody like Lord Mandelson, who has a very different worldview in terms of how he sees the UK, how he sees UK relations with the rest of the world compared to, the United States and that sort of protectionist view from Donald Trump, is a gamble. Now, Lord Mandelson is extremely adept at building relationships. He's already spoken about the possibility of, trying to build relationships with the Trump team. He doesn't have any scruples. He's not squeamish about potentially using Nigel Farage as a go-between. But at the same time, there is and you pointed to this in your intro there, that when Labour allowed activists to go out and volunteer for the Democrats, there was a complaint, a significant complaint from the Republicans. That didn't help matters. Nigel Farage, as the Reform UK leader, obviously has the ear of Donald Trump and those within Donald Trump's circle, even though he's had a bit of a falling out with Elon Musk. And that's not going to help matters either. And at the same time, and I think this is significant, Donald Trump has a suspicion of supranational bodies like the European Union, like NATO. And that's the way that Keir Starmer has been very clear that he wants to face in the next 3-4 years. He's already spoken about Donald Tusk, has said, he'd like to see a return, closer relationship with the UK, and he's the president of Poland, former, senior member of the European
Council
Union, European Council. That's right. And at the same time, Keir Starmer has said that he wants to announce a reset with the European Union. That's going to go down badly with Trump.
Do you think, briefly before we move on, do you think we'll find out quickly what the relationship with London is going to be like under the Trump administration?
I think we already know it's going to be difficult. And the question is now whether that sort of, it becomes openly fractured. And does the relationship that we've seen with the interventions of Elon Musk and his attacks on Keir Starmer and the UK, are those allowed to continue? Or does Donald Trump, and this is something that he's very adept at, try to rise above it and play people off against each other and actually try to be the mediator who comes in over the top and says, well, okay, I'll work with London, but I'll work with London on this basis. And I think what is clear now is that people in the Foreign Office and in Number 10 are waking up to the idea that it's not business as usual. It was significant, at the beginning of last week, they were going to push through the Chagos Islands deal. It was all going to go ahead. People were working ferociously to get that over the line. And then suddenly at the 11th hour, somebody said, actually, hang on a moment, this is going to go down so badly with Donald Trump. It's going to go down so badly with the incoming Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. We need to give them the right of actually vetoing this deal.
The only thing that's worrying about that is it's taken so long for people in Westminster and perhaps the Foreign Office to work that one out. Now, something that he is going to do quickly by all accounts, which I'm sure will set the pulse beating for quite a lot of people in this country who are worried about immigration, illegal migrants particularly, is that according to Trump's new border czar, a chap called Tom Homan, raids to detain and deport migrants living in the US without permission are set to begin on the first full day, that's Tuesday, of Donald Trump's new administration. He'll probably do that, won't he?
Yes, I think what's interesting about Trump this time around is he's learned all of the lessons from last time. He doesn't have any worries or concerns about trying to navigate the Washington landscape. He's, if you look at his picks for various key positions, he wants to get straight in there and get on with his agenda from that election win at the beginning of November. And I think you're right to say that, all the indications are that this is going to be Donald Trump. This is going to be the max version of Donald Trump, and he's going to plow ahead with his agenda. What he tapped into and what the Democrats didn't see coming during 2024 was he tapped into this real feeling that Washington wasn't working for America, and he knows that he wants to do right by the people who voted for him right across the United States. He wants to plow on with that agenda. He doesn't want to waste time trying to navigate around the political niceties within Washington, and that's why he's appointed Homan to that key post. And we can expect it. We can expect it to be bumpy. I think in the coming weeks, he's going to get on with it. He's not going to waste time.
Well, according to Sadiq Khan, he's busy warning Western democracy is at risk from resurgent fascism ahead of the Trump inauguration. Timing's everything on here. He's clearly also got Donald Trump in his sights, as well as, I'm sure, as parties like the AfD in Germany and elsewhere. It's extraordinary, really, that he's made this intervention on one level, but in many senses, I think he's also been very consistent with what he's always said. What's Sadiq Khan's motivation here? Is he trying to push the Labour Party to be more vocal about the far right, as he would happily describe them?
Yeah. So I think you're right to raise. So there is votes for Labour in addition to Donald Trump, right? There is a caucus of people who are vehemently opposed to Donald Trump. And what Sadiq is doing is trying to appeal to those people. However, in that article that he's written for The Observer, it is toned down, and it is quite. He doesn't attack Donald Trump directly, as Labour politicians, including our Foreign Secretary and of course Sadiq Khan, Angela Rayner, have done in the past. This is not a two-footed challenge on the incoming president. It talks in terms, we all know who he's talking about, of course. He's talking in terms about, the rise of fascism and the inferences, of course, that Donald Trump is key to that from Sadiq Khan's point of view. But this is Sadiq Khan not putting his foot to the floor in this attack. It's measured. And what's also interesting is the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, has already been out this morning saying that he disagrees with Sadiq Khan and that he thinks that it is not the view of what expressed by Sadiq Khan in terms of the rise of fascism is not the view of the British government. But at the same, I take your point. It's Labour trying to face both ways. Sadiq Khan, as the Mayor of London, a senior elected Labour politician, appealing to the core Labour vote who do not like Donald Trump, who are opposed to Donald Trump, but the government at the same time taking a different approach, knowing that they have to do business with Donald Trump. It's quite subtle politics here from Labour, and it's a way of trying to face both ways. Whether Donald Trump sees through that, I suspect he will.
And can we expect some verbal battles, well, not verbal battles, social media battles between Khan and the real Donald Trump?
No, I think Sadiq Khan's going to be under fairly strict orders to pare it back. That won't be helpful. And I think, I think that the old days of banning blimps in London and all the rest of it, I think those are gone. And Sadiq Khan will be under, I'd imagine, quite strict orders. Whilst he'll have permission to write articles like this in The Observer, where he talks about the rise of fascism, but without naming anybody, I think that will be okay from Keir Starmer and David Lammy's point of view. But I don't think he'll be able to rise to the bait or indeed provide the bait for Donald Trump as has happened in the past. I think those days, that would be highly damaging. And the reason I say that is that it took sustained intervention from Elon Musk before Keir Starmer even clapped back and talked about, and hit back at Elon Musk and the spread of misinformation as the Labour leader saw it. They don't want to be seen as the ones who antagonise the relationship. It's a very delicate balance that they have to strike, and they don't want to infuriate the leader, because there are so many big decisions coming up in short order, like America's support for Ukraine, a deal with Vladimir Putin, everything that, we may have a ceasefire in the Middle East, but there's a huge amount that still has to be sorted out in that regard. So the relations are at a delicate point, and it will do nothing for the British
and I think it's probably fair to say,
and indeed voters.
I think it's fair to say we don't have a sure-footed government as yet, so the prospect of shall we say, foul-ups are pretty clear. Listen, let's move on to Nigel Farage. He's in America, as you will be aware. He's enjoying, he's attending many functions, many parties. Apparently, he's picked up an offer of a cheque of $10 million from someone to help fund and lead him to power. But he's also said very boldly at a reception, I think it was last night, I could be Prime Minister before Trump leaves office. Is that a real prospect, do you think?
It would need this government to fall, because, of course, the next American election is in 2028. Keir Starmer can run the UK government, his government, this parliament through till 2029. So it would need the government to fall. And in that respect, I'm not sure it is possible. Is it possible that Nigel Farage wins the next election? I think that is a perfectly plausible idea. We've seen the rise of reform. It's gone from, if we think back to a year ago, it was sort of bumbling around on 8, 9, 10% in the polls. They're now up to above the Tories in some polls.
I just interrupt you on that. I'll just interrupt you on that point. In my far longer political life than yours, you'll be pleased to hear, no insurgent party has actually got anywhere near the heights of reform. It's a hugely significant, that, isn't it?
It's huge. It is hugely significant, Nick. I still think that if you look at the way the polls are playing out at the moment, I still think, and you'll know this and you'll be in a much better place to talk about it than myself, but I still think there needs to be some accommodation with the Conservative Party. There needs to be a way that the two can come together. We know that Nigel Farage does not play well with others. He likes to be the leader. He likes to be the top, at the very top, and he doesn't do negotiate. He doesn't work well potentially in a team unless he's leading that team. That's the way he likes to run things. And I think that's going to be difficult for the Conservative Party to accommodate. But for there to be guaranteed success for right of centre politics in 2029, and I say guaranteed success, there needs to be some sort of accommodation between Reform and the Conservative Party, and there needs to be a common ground. Okay,
I'm going to give you a very simple chance to answer this one before we let you go back to your weekend. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate the chances of an accommodation between the Conservatives and Reform by the time of the next general election?
I'd rate it at 7. And I think just watch out for what happens in Runcorn. There's going to be a by-election very soon.
Yeah.
Labour have a lead of over 14,000 from the general election over Reform. If the Tories and Reform go into that and fight it hard, Labour will retain the seat. I think that's probably odds on likely to happen. If they can work it out, I think Reform will win.